I'm Tom out of this Tom and Lindy duo. Lindy, just to finish off on Scarborough Maritime Heritage, Chairman Mark, he puts a tremendous amount of work in, and he deserves a lot of merit for how it's run nowadays. He puts countless hours in, and the 20 odd volunteers to do it. I don't work with Lindy, I have to live with her. So I don't mind doing odd talks like this, and I'm supported with another guy here tonight. I don't feel outnumbered. I was Scarborough born and bred down Bottom End in January 1947 when there was a lot of snow about, so they tell me it was very hard winter. And I'm the second of 5 kids, so I started my early life at Friarage up till 11 years old, like a lot of people down there. And secondary school was the Graham Sea training. But at an early age, I had a sister older than me, and then 2 brothers and a sister younger than me. And we all had to chuck in, so there were 7 of us in the house, chucking in to get my dad a wage, who was a cobble fisherman, which was potting for crab and lobsters in the summer and long lining for cod and haddock in the winter. So before he went to school, even 12 years old, something like that, he used to have to go down skein mussels with my mother at 3 o'clock in the morning and bait lines. In the summer she would clean the cafes out on the seafront, so you were always working, but it was just to bring one wage in really. It was only my dad got the wages, and the rest of us had to do what we were told to do. And that was before school and after school, so you could sell all fishing kids sat at one side of the classroom because we all stunk. And nobody'd sit next to you at school. And that was with mussel shells especially, the foul smell. And then about 12, 13 years old, I started copying my dad because I was eldest lad. It was a formality that the eldest son followed his dad, which they did by name anyhow. We had Tom right through generations, always been the family name. So I started off as Little Tom, or Tiny Tom, when my dad was alive and my granddad was alive. It was Big Tom, and Old Tom was my granddad. But I've come up the ladder now, I'm Old Tom. A son Tom and a grandson Tom. So school, I enjoyed Graham Sea training, the old Graham Sea training up near the church, I mean, not the big Graham. There was only 80 odd of us in the whole school, so we were about 15 to a class. It was a hard school, and you got cane regular and everything else, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the lessons I was interested in, which was like seamanship, navigation, how to do with sea. I did exceptionally well, and I even become head boy before I finished, because I did well in them, with the view of having a Navy career, maybe coming out and joining the Navy. Didn't happen. One of my dad's crew had ulcers, went in hospital. So my dad pulled me out of school to go with him in the cobble just a week after my 16th birthday. I thought I'll give it a go and then I'll go back to the Navy when I'm ready. But I wasn't like that. He said I stopped at fishing 37 years, which I still enjoyed and I would do over and over again. It was hard working with my dad because they were hard men, you know. You were never good enough for your own, if you know what I mean. You were frightened to death you were doing something wrong. You were only kids. And when I left my dad to go in trawlers, which meant longer away from home, but with different skippers, so I went with Bill Pashby, Denk Main Prize. You'll have heard of all these names in fishing community. They're all great men, and it was an honour to work under them. They taught me everything I wanted to know about the sea. I decided there and then I was going to be a fisherman. I wasn't going to be anything else, you know. So one night we were at sea with Denk. It's snowing, blowing, I'm wet through. He's in the wheelhouse, skipper. There's 4 of us on deck gutting fish. Seas pounding, yeah. And you're looking at him, he's sat with a string vest on and a pot of cocoa. And you've got icicles hanging off your eyes and your nose. And you think, if I'm going to do this for the next 30 years, I want to be doing it for me, which I did. So this was just after we were married young. We got married, we've been courting since we were 15. And we got married on the 2nd of September 1967, so work that out. That's 52 years today. So thank you, you've saved me taking her out. But we got married, I was only 20, Lindy was 19 when we got married, and we wanted 2 kids, that was the plan. 2 kids, a boy and a girl, 2 years between them. So, right, that's bit sorted out. Now I'll just have to go catch fish, pay for boat, pay for house, and have 2 kids. So Tommy was born on 7th of October 1968, and Joanne was born on 7th of October 1970. So we had the 2 kids exactly 2 years apart, but half an hour out difference because Tide was out that night. But that's the story behind that. And so at 26, I bought this boat. I had no money, and I went to a big trawler firm in Hull who sponsored me as an up-and-coming skipper. And I wanted money. We had no money. We'd just moved into a new house, and the 2 kids were already born then. And so they put the money up, paid my half and their half, so we were equal partners. And that lasted about 10 years, maybe. And then they went into liquidation because they were a big trawler firm from Hull. So I bought their half out, and then I became sole owner of this boat. She was 7 years old when I bought her, and I'd 25 years nearly. I've spent more nights with her than I have with Lindy. So that was how it was. And some of the tales you can tell. I mean, I like telling tales and stories. One of them I like saying was, we were fishing off Shields one night, and you didn't always get home, you know, in time. So he'd been at sea 4 or 5 days. We were coming home, but it was late, and there was no mobile phones in them days. You had to do a link call through a radio station to get your house. So that was all done. And when you talk on a link call, it's like talking on a ship's phone over. When you finish, you can't both talk together. So the idea was to ring Lindy and tell her I was still fishing down off Shields, but actually we'd all gone into Whitby 4 trawlers for a night on Beverly. But the old kiosk, the phone bulbs with the press button A, press button B. So she didn't realise, she thought I was still at sea, and I'm going press button A, press button B, put some more money in, and she still didn't realise. And I had crew outside making noise like seagulls. So that's true, that's gospel true. She didn't know that last year. So there's a lot of events like that. And fishing is it's a hard life, but it's an enjoyable life because it's quite unique. You go to work, it's not a 9 till 5 job, which you'd expect. So I never minded working nights, I never minded working weekends, I never minded working bank holidays. They're all the same to me. And you don't get double paid, time and a half or out like that. You don't get paid at all sometimes. It's quite unique. And 6 weeks, plenty of times with no wages when you got 2 young kids. We'd moved into a new house, and then the boat came along, and you're up to your eyes in debt. It's quite a worry, and you've got to really tackle, you know, the stress of it all. When it's good, it's good. We see heartache as well. I've lost friends at sea, I've lost relations at sea. On one occasion, we were running off all morning. It weren't very nice weather. A helicopter came above me and called me up on channel 16, which is distress signal, and he told me the boat was missing. So he told me where to go. It was about half an hour from where we were. We steamed to the position where he'd given me. There was wreckage, there was oil slicks, there was boards, there was everything. The boat was called Heritage. She turned over. Halfway through the search, we'd been searching for 5 hours. My phone rang, the big box phones you used to have before your little mobile phones. And it was Sky Evening News, and they said, are you involved in the search for Sean? I said, Sean? Sean, which Sean? So it said Sean Rowley, who's my cousin, who was 21 years old. And I didn't know till that point I was looking for one of my own kin. And sadly, he's still out there, Sean. He was never found. The other lad they found, but they didn't find him. And that happened on quite a few occasions. You sat drinking with people on a Friday night, Saturday night, and they've gone. Sunday, I've lost about maybe a dozen people in my lifetime, what I can recall, being lost at sea from Scarborough Bridge and Whitby. And that comes as quite a big shock to you. So anyhow, getting on with my life at sea was like that, and right up till 1998, I'd re-engined the boat, put new winch on, new engine in it, and I was back in debt a long way. And whether that was the cause of stress and worry, I don't know, but I was hit with a life-threatening illness, and I was very ill and had to knock off. It was my decision to stop fishing. It was too hard. And I put it for decommissioning, which was a scheme where the government put £6 million up over 2 schemes to get rid of fishing boats, take them out of the pot. So to decommission, you had to sacrifice your boat plus your fishing licence, if you can get what I mean. So that doesn't circulate around again. You can't buy them. That's taken out of the bulk. So take your ship out, your ship out, your ship out. Spend that 6 million. So 3 of us put in for it in Scarborough that year, 1998. 97 when we first started it. And I put in for mine, and my mates got it, and I didn't get it, because you put your own price on it, what you thought your boat was worth. And I was shall I shout. I couldn't do the job physically like I wanted to do, and I know Lindy wanted me out of it, so I'd put in for decommissioning in October. The other boats got it, I got squashed. Then Christmas Eve, we were just clewing up for the Christmas holidays. We'd scrubbed the boat down like you do and cleaned it up, only have a week ashore. And I went for a drink with my crew in Dolphin. And while I'm in there, a fishery officer came in and said, "Tom, do you still want decommissioning?" I said, "Me, yeah, if it's possible, the price I put in for." And he said, "Well, you can have it if you want. You're next on this," because a Scotsman had dropped out. So it put me to next on the list. And I thought, after a few more pints, and I thought, and then I went home and I said to Lindy, "Guess what?" I said, "Mr. Beggett came into Dolphin and said, what would be best Christmas box you could have?" And she said, "Get rid of that bloody boat." So it went, and I didn't get time to think about it, because that was Christmas Eve. On the 3rd of February 1998, I took her to Whitby to get chopped up, which was heartbreaking, because you had to take photographic evidence of her getting chopped up. I couldn't sell it on, and she would have gone forever. There was nothing wrong with boat, but it was my best way out. It gave me enough to make a pension out of it and everything else. But I was only 51, and although I wasn't fit enough to do the fishing now, I weren't ready to spend a lifetime at home with Lindy. So I thought I'll do that. I'll walk dogs even. I'll do anything. Anyhow, I did a summer angling for a guy who borrowed his boat and taking parties out doing wreck fishing with anglers. And that was all right, but it weren't me, it weren't proper fishing, and it weren't what I wanted to be doing. So then Tom Machin rang me up, and I got a phone call did I want to take Coronia, skipper the Coronia. So I thought, well, that might be good, I've never been a people person. I've always been at sea, 3 or 4 men, and that's it. But I said I'd come and give it a go for a try, but I loved it, and I did that for 14 years. I was skipper at Coronia and Regal Lady. I used to take 2-day trips up to Whitby on the Tuesday and the Thursday, take 150 people up to Whitby, give them 3 hours ashore and come back. And I loved it, all that was good. And I decided, found out then, I was like a people person and I enjoyed it. And I thought, well, that was just a summer job, and I'm not one for giving in. I still want to work now and things like that. But so the summertime, I thought, that was fine, but what we're going to do through winter, so I had a couple of winters not doing out, and then Pete Thundercliffe, who was a fisherman at Bridlington, had worked in Morrison's fish counter, and he decided he was starting at Safeways. So he rung me up and he said, "How would you like to do Morrison's fish cast. I've never worked in a shop, I wouldn't know where to start. I said, what are you doing? So he said, I'm going to Safeways, do you want to come with me then? I said, yeah, I'll come with you. Showed me the ropes, so I did 7 years at Safeways on their fish counter. And I loved it, I loved winding old ladies up. So I used to match kippers and tell them I knew 6 of them. And I wouldn't sell anybody any rubbish. I was always in trouble with management. I hope nobody's from Sainsbury's here. But it was like lobsters. We used to get these Canadian lobsters at £6-7 a go. And there'd be more meat in a prawn. You get an old lady coming and never tried a lobster in her life, thinking, I've never tried a lobster in my life. What would that be like, Tom? And I'm going, don't touch it. Don't touch it. It's no good. Here, have a prawn. So the manager came round, and Pete was on his break, and it was Valentine's Day. And we had 30 boxes of tuna to sell, and we couldn't get rid of it. It was on offer. It was going cheap. So the manager says, you're not on your microphone enough, Tom, get on, mate. I didn't like being told off, I don't like that. I was only there for fun of it, really. And he says, get on that microphone and tell them about the tuna. And I thought, oh. So I'm on my own, and I thought, what can I do? So it's Valentine's Day, I know. So all right, shut floor, there's my voice saying, it's Valentine's Day, never mind chocolates, never mind flowers, swoon with tuna. We sold it all. So I think you have to have a laugh in your line of work. As long as things are getting done right, I've always been the joker and things like that. I once took some meat off to a boat 40 mile off, and they'd had no food for, I don't know, a week maybe. And I'd put, instead of all the butcher stuff in a carrier bag, I filled it full of old ironworks and middles of bobbins and things. So they're waiting like tongues hanging out, and I threw this bag, but I threw it short on purpose, and it just fell short of the boat. And all faces running out trying to get it. But I had rail bag in the other hand.
Why did you chat with Tom about making crab pots?
Making crab pots when I was a kid, yeah. I said about 12, 14. I used to come home from school and make crab pots. Well, you know the old wooden crab pots with the hazel bowl. We used to make them out of that. So my dad would knock the frames up, and outside there'd be 20 crab pots. It was my homework, this. So I'd that to do before my proper schoolwork. And then I'm making them, and then I found out other fishermen had paid me 10 bob a pot. But my dad paid me now. So I started doing them for other people. So my dad sat at one side of the living room, I'm at the other, and we didn't talk, and we were both braiding away. And I used to to practice, I used to put like, under tables, I'd make a sheet of netting just to put newspapers on and things. In my bedroom, I made a pair of proper net curtains out of twine. And things like that, that was all good practice. And but you always got paid off other people, you didn't get paid off your dad. But my mum used to put our sea gear, we had the big iron fireplace with an oven door, and she would put, this before I got married, so if me and my dad are getting up to go to sea, same time but different boats, and my mum would always put our sea gear in the oven next to the fire. So first up got best pair of socks, best trousers, and everything like that. But my dad was, I've said a lot about my dad, but don't get me wrong, I loved him, he was my hero. And it was only up to his latter days when I was 50-year-old and he was dying. And I said, why were you so hard on me? And he said, because you want your best out, And I said, I understand life a lot better because I was more grown up. But he couldn't understand teenagers, we were dancing 4 or 5 nights a week, and then having to get up at 3 o'clock. It didn't always work. But I followed my dad's example, and as I say, he was my mentor. He had a varied life. He was 25 years lifeboat, second coxswain Scarborough lifeboat, won the bronze medal, and they were very brave men, all of them. I sailed with. When he retired, my dad, I took him to Scotland because he'd got blown up on Isle of Mull. He was a skipper of a trawler during the war, and alongside an ammunition cargo boat, and it'd been set alight, sabotaged, and it blew up. And he said there was blokes screaming out the portholes, but he couldn't get to him. He was on a raft. They could touch them, but they couldn't get them out. The boat was on fire, and it haunted him for the rest of his life, that. And taking him back to that place in Benesson where it happened, and the tear in his eye, I'll never forget it. And he was picked up on a raft and taken to Argyle Arms. I don't know if you've ever been to Mull and Benesson. And he went to Argyle Arms, there was 4 of us, and I said, oh, we'll get a pint and we'll get a bar meal or something. He said, no, you'll get yours, Tom, I'm looking after myself. So he wouldn't have out to do with me and Lindy and his fishing partner of 40 years. And he said, I'll look after myself. So it was a thing, I know, that scampi in a basket. He started another. My dad says to last, she was only about 20, I'll have a bottle of brown ale off that bottom shelf, my love. So snaps it open, she put it on counter, says £2.50. He said, bugger off, I paid for one in 1941 and I've never had it. So there was all them stories. And yeah, I was in a boat called Jan Denise, got run down by a German cargo boat. Got run down twice. We were a lucky boat, that one. Well, I just come out of fish room, it was a still night, it was as fine as this, and that's when it's most dangerous because they're likely to be off guard on watch on a big cargo boat. And the ship just kept coming and coming and coming until he jumped, banged right into the middle of it. Well, it banged into starboard gallus, which was probably the strongest part of the boat, and stopped us sinking, so it was all panic. And you do panic, I know you're not supposed to, you're supposed to do this back book and that back book. And yet we run down cabin, 4 crew, we all put life jackets on and realised, we're all big lads like, realised we couldn't get back up hatch. Put your life jacket on and pushing and shoving, trying to get, we laugh about it now, but it could have been serious then. And then I once took Coronia with all with RNLI, Coast Guards, also police, everybody, fire brigade. They were all doing this mock thing where I took 90 passengers off on Coronia to do a mock disaster. We were supposed to be on fire. So it was bad weather. Well, I didn't know which was actors and which was proper casualties, because some had slings, some had black eyes, some had cuts on the head, and we had to evacuate them all off. We had a meeting in Lifeboat House after it, with me being skipper at Coronia, as to what should have been done and what wasn't done, you know. And I got into trouble. I'd sent my engineer down to see what the fire was, but he never come back. He was in bar. I got into trouble for that, and I'd said to him afterwards, we're all wrong, because nobody's mentioned, so Coast Guard and RNLI, I said, we've got 2 rafts, 120-man rafts, these raft space, for 240 people. They're still in cradle. Nobody thought about launching them, and we were on fire. So it does happen like that. You do lose your senses and what you should be doing and what you do are 2 different things. And then I've been at lifeboat a few times myself, but with me being in trawlers, I was never a regular lifeboat man. It was made up of fishermen in early days. And you would do that, you would jump in. One bad night when Neptune oil rig was toppling over, there was a bad night in the late 60s. I went down with my dad because I was still at school and living at home. And there's only 6-man crew at lifeboat. And my dad was in it, my Uncle Jack was in it, and I was in it. Bill Sheeder was coxswain, and he threw me out. He said, I can't take 3 from same family, because it was a really, really bad night, you know. And all the times I've been in it, and then I finished up when I sort of retired from fishing, and I did 12 years as a lifeboat operation, like a deputy launch advisor, where the lifeboat, if it's launched, the Coast Guards used to ring people, 3 of us like me, as to what condition the sea is. What do I think? Because the Coast Guards in Bridlington and Hull, they don't know what it's like at Scarborough, you know, so they're asking, do we need the big boat, do we need the little boat, do we need both boats, helicopters? Well, so that was interesting. I did that for 12 years. But just all done now. I worked in box office for Regal Lady, and that's just come to an end. So I think I might retire. She said I've got to find a job. So yeah. If you want any questions or answers, anything.
What you haven't said about old Tom?
Oh, Tommy, I'll just show you this. This was, the lady come to our house a long time ago, and it says Iron Men in Wooden Boats, and there's 2 or 3 pages there. This goes back a bit, because that's my dad, me. That's my son who's 51 next month. This is my grandson who's 26, 27. So these 2 are in the Navy now. That's my daughter-in-law. And Tommy, as I say, my son's 51 coming up. He joined Navy at 17, Royal Navy, so he didn't have to come fishing. I wanted him. I had a boat and everything. It did hurt at the time, I'll be honest about it. But I think I was sort of the reason he run away to join Navy. He was 17. He's still in Navy now, 34 years, and he's gone up through the ranks from a junior seaman up to a lieutenant commander. And his last deployment was on Dauntless, which is our latest destroyer. I went a week with him on Dauntless. I've been a week on HMS Liverpool with him. I was a week on HMS York with him, but Dauntless is something else, the D-class destroyer. And in an up room like as big as this, with as many people as this in, and I'm like this, and although the skipper sat here, the air to surface man is here, and the underwater warfare officer is here. So Tommy sat here, the old man sat here, and I'm sat behind him, and I'm going, what now, Tom? Don't shout that. £6 million each. What's this? And then my grandson, young Tom, we tried to stick to Tommy and Thomas, but when we're all together, if we're having a pint, we're all Toms. To friends, we're all Toms. But if we're in family room, we've got to stick to our family name, else we don't know who we're talking to. So the young one, Thomas, he's 28, 27. He's been in Navy 7-8 years. He's following his dad, so I'm really proud. My daughter Joanne runs Rowley's dance school. You know that at YMCA. She does that with 200 or 300 kids and under books, and so they're good. And I'm blessed with 4 lovely grandkids, and very happy. Just get rid of her and I'm away.
You deserve a medal. I'm looking at your wife.
She's going to shut him up now.
Yeah.
So just before you have your tea break then, and you can have a look at these, is there any questions that you want to ask either of us?
Yeah, can I ask something, please? I'm really sorry for you about your decommissioning of your boat. It must have been terrible. I just wonder, do you have any idea how many fishing boats there were in your day and how many there are now?
In Scarborough?
Yes.
Well, in Scarborough, 1963, 63 when I left school,
Yeah,
there would be 25 what I would class as trawlers.
right.
There's maybe 4 or 5 now.
Right.
Well, they don't fish from me anymore. The big ones fish down, because the steaming time is taken up in the quarter days, the days at sea. If they give you 200 days at sea,
Yeah.
you don't want to spend one steaming down to Aberdeen. So they leave the boats down Aberdeen, Peterhead, and fish out of there. And that's a better market anyhow. But the smaller boats, I'm afraid, with red tape and one thing or another, they're running them one-handed, two-handed, which is dangerous. So they make it where we can't go to sea because you want this, or red tape is just killed it. It's like doing a job with one hand behind your back. Because it was a free-for-all, there was no quotas when I first started going to sea. And fishermen want to conserve just as much as everybody else. But to start kicking hundreds of stones of fish through outside because you can't land them, it's no good to me or anybody. So they come up with an idea. I'll just finish off with, like, the codling was 12 inches, and overnight they increased it to 14 inches. So all that meant was 12, 13-inch codlings we were kicking through outside. And I got no better price for them, and you didn't get a difference when you buy them in your fish shop either. And it's just somebody sat in an office who's only got 500 grand a year, thinks, oh, this would be a good idea. We'll up the mash size, we'll up this, but you still catch small fish. And it would be better, I think it would be better for conservation all around if you just boxed that fish and brought it in and you're happy you've got a day's work, you've got a day's pay. and nobody was hurt, and no fish just laid on the seabed rotted. And you go home, you put your telly on, anyway, well, there's thousands of kids starving or fighting for a bowl full of rice, and I've just dumped 200 stone of fish.
And I think that's why we get all this a lot of these seagull problems is when they used to be gutting at sea, then the seagulls were out at sea and getting the gut for their food. Now that isn't happening anymore, so they're coming inland to get their food, and some people are feeding them.
They don't come near our house, so you won't send no food.
Look at the size of it.
Hot noodle.
Tom did have to finish fishing because he had cancer. He had kidney cancer and lost a kidney. Then 12 years after that he had bowel cancer, and he's now got liver cancer, or cancer in his liver, should I say. But he just kept going. He laid his boat up one time, supposedly to finish fishing, and he was off for 9 months and decided he'd gone back again. So you can see why I wanted him to get rid of boat. So it's not just me nagging him.
When I did finish with boat, I'd been doing a deal to try and buy a smaller boat, unbeknown to Lindy. And I'd done a deal on phone with a boat in Milford Haven. Well, Milford Haven was about 6-7 hour drive from home. And I decided to meet the guy, go down to Wales and meet him. And she rung me up and said, "Where are you, on Fish Market?" I says, "No, I'm in Chester, I'm on my way through North Wales, going down to Milford." She thought I was kidding. And I'd only chucked a few clothes in the carrier bag.
Some underpants, that's all you took.
And I went, so I went down Milford Haven, and the boat what he'd sent the pictures of me looked a palace, but it was a wreck. So I didn't even get to meet the bloke. And then I went from Milford Haven, I drove down to Brixham. So I get to Brixham, another boat I'd been looking at. I wanted it badly, and I said to the guy, "I'll have it, but I wanted 10,000 knocking off it because engine wanted a lot of work on." I said, "By the time I get it home and get engine fitted, I want it price lowered a bit." And he wouldn't. So I went and booked in a pub and stopped for the night and met him again next morning. He wouldn't do it. And then I said, "Right, I'll give you an hour. I'll go up motorway, and if you change your mind, just give me a ring." And he didn't, so I pulled in for a coffee. I rung Lindy and I said, "I finished." And I've never touched a net or anything since.
You do, you make little crab pots.
I make little crab pots, just novelty ones, put flowers in, just for friends, and sometimes put a bottle of wine in what they can't get at. That's all. A little crab pot, like one of them miniature bottles of wine, but I've sewed it all around and they can't get into it. And I
That's what he gives his nurses for
in
Christmas.
emergency, cut the twine. Any questions?
How long did it take you to make a crab pot? When you say
a
when
full
you're at home, when
size.
you used to get your
Actually,
10 bob?
making a small one takes me longer to make a small one than a big one, because the frames, they get the frames made now they're already welded with steel rods, But my little one.